Welcome to the Caregiver Reality Show, hosted by gerontologist and family caregiver expert David Levy, speaking on a topic that is not only a national problem, but an international one, and represents one of the biggest dilemmas facing us today: Alzheimer's disease and dementia. With no cure in sight and hundreds more being diagnosed weekly, Alzheimer's is more feared than cancer or heart disease. Join us as David Levy breaks it down and educates, informs, and explains useful caregiver strategies and techniques that 25 years of non-clinical family caregiving have taught him. You can listen or call in and be part of the show. 888-565-1470 to ask your questions. And now, here's David Levy.
Good evening, Boca Raton, America, and the world. This is the Caregiver Reality Show. I'm your host, David Levy, gerontologist. I'm here with my co-host, Paul Vattiato, and tonight, as promised, we brought our wives. Paul's wife, Debbie, is here, and my wife, Suzette, is here, and we're going to continue our conversation about spousal caregiving, but this time we're going to talk to the carees, all right, and get their perception of what goes on in our lives as caregivers and how and why it may differentiate from just being husbands to also being caregivers. Now, dear, you have to sit up and get near that microphone.
Okay.
All right. And so, good evening, Suzette.
Good evening.
Good evening, Debbie. And if any of you out there have the desire to ask a question of either of these two lovely ladies, you can reach us at 888-565-1470. And we're on caregiverreality.com to watch us live, or iHeart.com. For any radio out there, just go to iHeart.com, click on Florida and WNN, and there we will be. Anyway, Caregiver Reality is here tonight. We're a little science, a little human interest, a little caregiver education. However, we are also support, respect, and quality of life for our loved ones. And so without any further ado, Debbie, I'm going to ask you to just kind of open up the show a little bit and give us a little background on who you are and what you did and what happened to you.
Well, I've been an RN, a nurse, and worked in the hospitals, and then I ended up coming to Florida, and I ran an outpatient center, so I was very, very busy making sure all the doctors were all taken care of and the patients. So I was a very, very big giver at that time. And I was very healthy, never was really sick, nothing. And then all of a sudden I just started noticing aches and pains, couldn't get in and out of my car, and couldn't walk. And so my husband, being like he is, he has to, try telling me what to do, which is pretty hard for people to tell me what to do. But after a while, I realized I was getting worse. And I kind of got scared because I didn't know what was going on. And he was the one that set my appointments up for my doctor right away.
He being Paul?
Yes, Paul.
Okay.
Set it up for me. And I was scared because I never had anything wrong. And we went to the doctors, and that's when they found out I did have lupus. And I just kind of went downhill from there. And I had degenerate muscles, degenerate bones, so I've had spinal. I've been in bed for 3 weeks at a clip. And it was so hard for me to be like that because I have been very, very independent all my life. I've never had to say to a husband like, oh, can we do this? If I wanted to do it, I just did it. And so it was really hard to let him come in and take me like to the bathroom. I kept saying, this is embarrassing. He says, it's not embarrassing. I don't want you to fall. And I'm like, well, just shut the door and I'll tell you when I'm done. He's like, no. And it would be dinner time, and he would maybe, make a chicken. And he would just pick off the white pieces for me and bring them in the bedroom and said, just eat this little bit. And I'm like, I'm not hungry. You have to eat. And
He sounds like a good Jewish mother.
right.
Yes, he does.
And so he just really came into the role as I did when I was a nurse. And he was very good at it. He knew my limitations more than I did, because I would think, oh, I'm fine. He's not here. He'll never know if I do something, and then I'd fall. Well, then I'd have to tell him,
Yes.
and then he'd get mad. And it wasn't the fact of getting mad because I felt it was getting mad because
You
now
broke the rules.
I broke the rules, plus it would be another week in bed for him. He's never once complained about taking care of me at all. He goes, every day he calls me and asks me what we need from the store. He always gets all the groceries. He gets all the dinners. And he also, he pays all the bills now. I used to pay my own credit card, so now if I go out, I have to watch what I spend, so you'll know. And, but he's been very, very good about everything. And we've missed a lot of things that were very important to him in his job because I couldn't go. And he didn't
I
want to
understand
go
that.
without me.
Mm-hmm.
And I would always tell him, go ahead and go. I'll stay on the couch. And he's like, no, it's not the same going without you. And that's what really made me feel really upset. I kind of
Yes.
felt bad that he was like in the same position almost that I was. So,
Except he didn't have a white hat.
no, he didn't.
I would have went with David, but he always wanted to lead. Suzette, let me ask you a question, if I may.
Yes.
David is an acknowledged expert on caregiving, and we've all listened to David for
Ad nauseum.
And no,
forever on the do's, the don'ts, the hows, the whys, the coping.
Yes.
And I know you've been sick for many years, so why don't you give a little bit of your story, and then same type of a question. Talk about David as a caregiver.
Okay. If I start going on too long about one thing, somebody kick me.
Yes.
Okay. Um,
But I have to be careful where I kick you because,
Yes.
that has repercussions.
I was an administrator in a hospital for all the neurology programs, and I helped start most of them. And I started the Memory Disorder Center at North Broward, the Dizziness and Balance Center, all those kinds of things. And so I had a lot of people working for me, and I had a lot of neurologists and neuropsychologists who, in a way, worked for me. Okay, because I was the hospital side. I was sort of the enemy and not the enemy. I had to play the double role there. And I remember telling the doctor, I can't remember anything all of a sudden. Oh, you're too busy. I said, no, there's something wrong. And then I would have meetings with different managers, and I couldn't remember what we did the week before, and I'd have the notes in front of me. So anyway, I started to then not be able to go to the gym. David and I belonged to a workout gym, right?
Right.
And we would go 3 times a week together. I couldn't go anymore. It just wore me out. I would go to work, and I had a sofa in my office and a big table, and it was quite a large office, and so I'd have to lay down on my sofa and tell my secretary, oh, I gotta lay down for like a half hour. After I'd lay down a half hour, I was good for maybe another hour, and that went on for a long time. Finally, we were at Boca Hospital doing something for the fire department.
Right.
And we were speaking or something. And I said, I can't be here. My head hurts too much. So I slowly began having headaches. I had so many different symptoms that most doctors would say, if you went to them, you're crazy. In their mind. Because with that bag of symptoms, what else could you have? So it took about 9 months before I got diagnosed, and I had to go to Toledo, Ohio, to the medical college. And there was a research doctor there who figured out I had dysautonomia. So none of my systems that are autonomic work right, which is
Automatic, you mean?
autonomic
Yes.
systems. That means everything you don't think about, like your
You just do.
bladder, your gut, your lungs. Nothing works properly, which causes a lot of problems. And David was already being a caregiver at that time, weren't you? Pretty
Yes.
heavy into it?
I was dealing with my father at that time.
Oh, that's right. And he was quite ill. And all of a sudden, I wasn't cooking. I wasn't going to the store. I wasn't doing anything. And I thought, I tricked this poor man into marrying me. And look what he got. I mean, it just seemed so unfair that he would work all day and come home and have to work for me, so to speak.
That's how I felt.
Yeah, and I think I still feel that way much
do,
of
yeah.
the time, and he can't get out and do
Right.
like I would like him to.
I feel guilty for being sick.
Oh, I do too. I can't.
In all
I can't stand
honesty,
it.
because and he never complains. I mean, he's never once complained to me about anything. And,
I know they don't complain.
And I mean, he's taken off like work when I've had to have surgeries and stuff like that, a lot of biopsies, and you know what? I always say I'm fine. I won't get out of bed. I'll go back to sleep. And he will not leave. We have a little cat, and he hates cats. And well, I'm sorry, but
Truth be
and,
known.
but I got this little kitten, and she's become my therapy cat. When I'm sick, she's right in bed with me when he's at work. But when he comes home, she gets out and will lay on the bottom of the bed. But she's right beside me, wraps her little legs around me, and she lays with me. And when I'm in pain, she just sits there and...
I have therapy dogs, only
So-
I have 4 of them.
Yeah, I mean, and they really do help.
And they come and lay by me
Mhm.
and stay with me, all 4 of them, and it's really kind of amazing. But I think maybe they help me survive.
I think they do.
We
They make
chat.
you forget about, yeah.
We have
I
little
thought, yeah.
conversations.
But I mean, I think just petting the cat and just having her sit there, I don't feel alone. I don't feel like scared or something's going to happen to me. And
But I worry about him.
hmm
I really
Why do
worry.
you worry about me?
I worry that you're too tired, that I make you do too many things, like you have to go to get all my medicines at the store, you have to go to the grocery store, you have to run and buy towels and sheets for the bed, and I mean, he does everything.
he does too. He does all the laundry.
How fair can this be?
I used to do all of that.
Oh, me
Plus,
too.
before I actually got sick, his father was, we had to take care of his father. And because of him working, well, I was working too, like almost 60 hours a week, I would go and still fill up his father's pill case for him and make sure he was okay. And then his dad would call me at work and to tell me that he had problems for 3 days. And everybody would laugh and everyone would say, well, we guess you'll be sitting in the ER all night long tonight. And I was.
Yes.
I mean, he met me there, but, and then he had to end up being, take care of me and his father. Then at
Well,
the
my
same time.
mother came to live with us during this time when I was sick, real sick. And so David was taking care of
My
Grandma,
father, her mother.
my mom, and me. And finally it got to the point where I said, she has to go up to my sister in North Carolina, because he couldn't.
It was too much.
It was too much for David. He was like pulling all his hairs out.
Yeah.
Well, it was a lot, but there's only so much one caregiver can do.
Right. Right.
Yes, there is.
And actually, that's what we were saying about, like, if I get really sick or something, I get, and something would happen to him, I don't know who, I would probably have to get through his contacts and get somebody from an aide or something to come in, because,
yeah.
I mean, or call where I used to work and I could get, one of them to stop. I mean, because my children don't live around here, and
I do have a daughter, so I'm very lucky that I have
so
a daughter
I have
in
no one to
Boca.
run for me anywhere.
No.
So,
And I have a neighbor behind me who I absolutely adore, and she will call most every day and say, you want me to take you to the store? Do you want to go to
Well, that's
CVS? And so she's kind of a savior in a way as well.
Yep.
yeah, that's good.
And so, you have to kind of make a plan and be ready to do almost
Right.
anything, and then as soon as you think you got things worked out,
Something goes wrong.
something changes.
But I always wonder how you guys feel.
how do we?
you feel about having to do this?
Well, I don't feel put upon. I just think that the circumstances were such that you didn't ask for what you had. And so when I think about it, and I'll reverse the situation. And I think if I had what you had, first of all, I would have killed myself by now. All right. But I don't think that you would have abandoned me,
No, no.
as a caregiver.
Never,
Right.
never.
And so, Paul,
Well, I keep telling Debbie, we were married in 2005 in Jamaica on the beach. We have a large picture in the living room.
Oh, how wonderful.
And there's a copy of our marriage license that sits within this large collage of pictures. And I said, we stood on that beach and we made a promise to one another. We were both healthy. We were both looking at life and
Oh,
all
yes.
it had to
Oh,
offer.
yes.
But we said those words in sickness and in health. And it really becomes defining when you are called to that role.
Yeah.
And it really is, it's not a responsibility. It's really part of our relationship now at this point, because this caregiving, it's defined us. I mean, I love Debbie no matter what her condition is at any given time. And all I want her to be is happy and to be well. And that's as far as it goes. So the rest of it you just do.
that's absolutely correct. I can remember when Suzette started to really get sick. It was around the end of 98, beginning of 99. And the interesting thing was all of her conditions looked like they were neurological. Either that or she was nuts. And the doctors knew her, and I'm sure similar to you, Debbie, they used to call her the Energizer Bunny. She was all over that hospital. She knew everything going on, and before it had to happen,
That's
she
how I
was there.
yeah.
And so they came to her and said, if we didn't know better that you are the Energizer Bunny, we would think that either you're psychologically or psychiatrically something is really wrong with you. And so we had all of South Florida's neurologists and psychologists assembled in the Neuro Institute, and no one had a clue. We spent New Year's Eve doing a cisternogram, and for those of you that don't know what that is, it's trying to determine the flow of your cerebral fluid in your brain. And so we watched the ball drop while she was hooked up to all kinds of monitors, and I think that was kind of a defining moment.
Yes, I think you're right.
I mean, we ushered in not the new year, but a new era.
Right.
And things really changed. For those of you that are listening, we're 888-565-1470 if you'd like to ask a question. If not, just keep watching us on CareGiverReality.com live show. Paul?
Well, what is so difficult, I think, is not knowing from day to day what is going to happen. I mean, I call Debbie up first thing in the morning. How are you feeling? What's going on today? And, it's like, don't even have to hear the words. Just know from the look, the sound, and it's almost at this point anticipatory as to what's going to be happening. And it's trying to protect her from herself, because psychologically it's very hard for her to accept this change or this next chapter in her life. You were the Energizer Bunny. She was Marge in charge. And it was the same thing. It was that, she knew better, and probably as a patient, her being a nurse was the worst thing, because
She knew too much.
she knew too much. And she knew
So
what
did I.
questions to ask, and she knew where the road was ultimately going to end up going. And
Well, it's very interesting that the two of you have such parallels in your life, coming out of the clinical system, second marriages, getting involved in things that just progressively seem to disintegrate. I mean, Paul makes his phone call in the morning. I get up and say, "What's not working today?"
Yeah.
All right, and we go from there. And then sometime during the day, I call and check in with the dogs because I really need to know the real lowdown on what's going on.
Yeah, the cat has learned to speak.
Okay.
Yes, yes. You know, it was kind of funny when I was starting with all these symptoms, and one of the doctors that worked with me that was very close to me, he said, "Suze, I don't know what's wrong with you. You made me go to Mass this week. I haven't gone to Mass in months." So he said, "You got to go out of town to a medical college hospital." I said, "Okay." And so that's what we did.
Yep.
Right.
And it almost killed her. Not the
Oh.
trip, but she wound up getting a MRSA infection
Oh, gosh.
from the IV that they gave her when they were doing something called the tilt table test to determine that she had dysautonomia or postural orthostatic tachycardia, called POTS, and we don't need to discuss that one any further. And up until that point, we did not have any pets in the house. And so we got back to Florida, and it was about 2 days later, and she is sick as a dog. And so I take her back to North Broward Hospital, the home where she comes from, and they take a look at her, and one of the nurses said, "You better run a full blood spectrum on her." And they did, and they found out that she had MRSA. And because she also has a mitral valve problem with her heart, we were really worried. It was touch and go. And actually, the second night I went home, and I told this to Suzette, I was actually anticipating that we were going to have a funeral. And because my family is nuts and so is hers, I was trying to figure out who was going to get in which limo. And
My son said to me, post this episode, "You know, David came home last night all weirded out." "What was going on?" I said, "Well, I think he thought I wasn't doing well."
Right, but one thing did come out of it, and I'll never forget this, and neither will you. It was the third night, and she was still in pretty rough shape. And I said to her, because up until then she'd been asking for a pet. And so the deal was, you remember what I said to you?
Yes.
What did I say?
"If you'll live through this, I will see that you get a puppy."
Right.
Right.
And so that was the quid pro quo, but she had to stay alive in order to get the pet.
That's basically how I got my cat. And we got her I went and just got her, and I mean, she just sat in my hand as how small she was, and she wouldn't sleep unless she laid on me and could hear my heartbeat. And he fell in love with her from the day he first saw her.
Oh, he's a big pussy cat anyhow.
Oh, so he always says, "I still don't like cats, but I do like her."
Okay.
So we named her Katie.
Okay.
So, but she's a good girl.
All right. Well, our first dog was Emmy, and she passed away a couple of years ago. But we kept replacing them, and now we have 4.
Let me ask a question, if I will. I think one of the scariest nights that I remember in all this time was that we were watching television, and then all of a sudden Debbie started grabbing her chest, and she was having these stabbing pains. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. All of the symptoms of a heart attack, and that was the first time 911 that she had to go out by ambulance to Bethesda. Thankfully, after umpteen tests that were done, it was nothing. But when seeing that ambulance leave as a caregiver, it's like not coming back.
Yeah, they thought the lupus had hit my heart. But
Oh,
the only good thing for me was, I knew the guys running the ambulance, So he's like, "Where can I put your IV at? I can't find anything." But they
Oh,
were.
you have rollers too?
No, I just don't have veins.
Oh, neither does Suzette.
No.
So I
They
said,
can't find
"Well,
them."
don't." I mean, they've got a little one in, but he says, "You know the protocol. You got to put the ditch under your tongue, and you got to do this." And so I went to the hospital, and they says, Okay, it looks good. It's just going really fast, and it still is going really fast. They can't figure out why. My heart rate's like 110, even at resting, and so we don't know. But I wasn't having a heart attack. But I says, oh, okay, well then I'll just get dressed and go home. And they're like, oh no,
No.
you don't just go home. You got to stay. I'm like, but that's okay. If something happens to me, I'll come back.
Right.
You know. And they're like, no, we don't think so.
Well, Suzette, the EMTs got to know our address. And,
They did.
you know, after a while, we didn't have to give them any
They knew,
information. Right, exactly.
Yes.
And it's not funny, but it happened to have been the truth of the matter. And it was scary. Some nights were very, very scary. And Paul?
It really is scary because I have in my attaché case, in my bag that I carry every day, our advanced directives. I mean, it's you never know when the phone call is going to come and what you're going to be asked to do. And I had not only Debbie's advanced directives, I also had my father's.
I
And
see.
I had to make sure I kept them both straight.
And you also had mine on that little port, that USB port.
Yes, and I also.
Oh, yes. We all carry
We have-
one now in
We
our
all carry
wallets.
We
them
have
also.
one also.
All right, but you're listening to the Caregiver Reality Show, and I don't think you'll ever hear more reality from caregivers and from care recipients than you're listening to tonight. It's, you know, we're telling it like it is, and one of the reasons that Paul and I brought our wives on was because we talk about being caregivers, and we wanted the opportunity to let the audience understand the situation that we're dealing with, why we discuss it the way we do, and to have our wives' perspective on what it's doing to them and their perspectives on what it's doing to us. Caregiving isn't easy. Spousal caregiving is tough, and especially when you stop to consider that both these women had very good jobs, and all of a sudden, out of the blue, something happened, and boom, lives went upside down and changed, and progressively on any given day, we just don't know what the day will bring. Not that anybody does, but when it comes to caregiving, you really have to be ready for the things you don't expect. And we're at 7 o'clock, and I think we'll take our station break, and when we come back, we'll regale you with a few more stories. And if you've got any questions, 888-565-1470. I'm sure that the women will be more than happy to try and answer yours. Paul and I, we know you can call us anytime. But anyway, take it to the station break. Thank you.
Talk 1470 WWNN Pompano Beach, WKIS HD3 Boca Raton, Miami, Fort Lauderdale.
Hello. Are you a family caregiver? Are you taking care of a spouse, parent, or loved one who can no longer care for themselves? Are you dealing with Alzheimer's disease and don't know what to do? Are you stressed, burned out, frustrated, and don't know where to turn? Have you realized that your doctor, lawyer, and mental health professionals don't have real practical answers? You need a non-clinical family caregiver expert that the professionals turn to. You need David Levy. He is a family caregiver expert with 25 years of active experience with thousands of family caregivers. He can help you provide a better quality of life for you and your loved one. Contact David Levy at dlevy@caregivered.org. That's dlevy@caregivered.org. Or call 561-482-0086. And let's get your mental road to healing started.
We're back, and it's the Caregiver Reality Show. I'm your host, David Levy. You can call us on 888-565-1470, or hopefully you're watching us on caregiverreality.com. During the break, both wives made the comment, and so we'll pick it up from there, that while they had a lot of friends when they were working, and when Paul and I were able to get out, I don't mean he and I as a couple, but not that there's anything wrong with that, Paul, as Seinfeld would say.
Yes.
But we've talked about the fact that we had no longer have anybody that we truly socialize with, because all of our friends know, and you've heard me say on this show, we are guaranteed to be the people. If you have a 6:15 dinner date with us, that will get the phone call at 10 after 6 that says we're not coming. So after a while, your
people
friends just
forget.
decide that
They can't really accept
it's
it.
easier without you. And the other thing I think you discovered, dear, was that work friends
Forget
are
it.
work friends.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
Right.
never the twain shall meet.
That's how
And
it is.
so, Debbie, was that your experience?
Yes, exactly. I mean, I was friends at work, and once I left work and got in the car, that was the end of it. And I mean, we never chit-chatted on the phone, about anything, unless somebody called me about work, related. Other than that, that was all the time I had for, really, because, I would start getting the supper ready for Paul, throw in the laundry. I would do all that kind of stuff. And another thing that happened to me that I didn't want to be friends with other people either was the fact that my hair fell out.
Oh my.
And I had to have biopsies on my head and injections. So he left these little tails hang up here, and I had to get wigs. And I thought that was the most horriblest thing until I heard about other women.
Right.
It
Anybody that's
happens.
gone
Right.
through
And I
chemotherapy
sat there
or
and I cried, and I felt so guilty for losing my hair when these girls were younger than me and have had that happen. It made me really see the perspective of how things
don't say
go.
that.
And but I have no friends. I have no one that calls me, no one. And I don't reach out to anyone because I'm stuck in the house. Once in a while I'll walk around, and most of our neighbors, they're not really all with it. So it's like, so I just kind of,
It's very
you
tough.
know,
Yeah.
right, there's no one for me to call and say, I'm having a bad day, could you stop over? And,
No.
I have no one.
No, I don't either. I have that wonderful neighbor friend who will take me places and who will call me each evening in case we want to have a cocktail together.
Oh, well, that's nice.
And I can maybe walk over to her house. And
It's maybe 150 feet from our back door to her porch door, and because of her condition,
it's hard.
It's hard.
It is.
My legs get too tired.
Well, see, me, it's hard because I can't put my arms up because I have a torn rotator cuff. So, like he'll say, we'll go shopping and get a dress or something. He'll say, here, try these 3 on. I'm like, I can't do it. I'll take them home and try them on when I feel better. And I'm like, I'm done. Let's just go home. And that's not me. I'm like,
No.
I'm there till the store closes, But anymore,
Well,
I'm
my
not.
problem was I wanted to take her to the grocery store, but she won't fit in the cart. That
Right,
her
those
legs
little-
don't make it through
Yeah.
the opening, and so it's very tough. Because the other day I went shopping, just as a for instance, and she made out a list, as she always does, and somewhere along the way I had the list on a piece of yellow legal paper, and it was propped up where she would normally be sitting, and when I didn't realize it, it blew out, it just fell out of the cart. I went back over a couple of rows. I can't imagine why anybody would take my shopping list. And so I was trying now to weave in and out of my Alzheimer's and remember what was on the list. And
I think
got,
you did pretty
I
good.
got almost everything, but I didn't bring home honey mustard pretzels.
oh,
And boy, I didn't hear the end of that. And last night, my daughter-in-law, my stepdaughter, came over, and the first thing she asked for was a pretzel. And what am I supposed to do? There's no
they're
winning
just
for
not
losing.
there. Right.
But as far as friends are concerned, and I can remember when she was at the hospital, as you said to me earlier, Debbie, with Paul, there's something that you could do every night in the network of business
Right.
acquaintances,
Yes.
etc. And it was the same thing there.
Fundraisers. And
Right, and all that
fundraisers
kind
and
of stuff.
fundraisers.
Right.
Right, but Suzette had 4 pretty good friends that used to make up her little social circle, and one passed away, and the other three fell away, and within a very short period of time, because there was nothing that they had in common, even though they'd been friends
For
or
years.
associates at
Exactly.
business for the
Because
longest
you have
time.
nothing to talk about.
Right, and it
No.
didn't fit into the fabric of things.
Oh, and I couldn't meet him for lunch.
Right.
And
that's
I
how-
can't.
Right.
Let's go shopping.
'Cause my
Well,
one friend, well, she's not a friend anymore. I mean, I only call her when I need her. That sounds horrible. But she's a nurse anesthetist. And so every time I go to the hospital, if I have to be put to sleep, I always make sure she's there. Or, because she staffs
Oh, yes.
them all. And so she does that for me. But other than that, no one calls because you know what?
they don't want to hear the
They don't want to
story.
hear. They've dealt with this all day long. People being sick all day long. They don't want to go home and hear another person being sick. They're over it. I mean, and,
Right.
I understand that.
And that's one of the things. I'm sorry, Paul. Go ahead.
I was going to ask you, David, because I know one of the things that I encounter in going to business every day is people ask, "Well, how's Debbie doing?" And I have to pause. And do they really want to know? To what degree do they want to know, or is it just she's having a good day, bad day, and just let it go from there? Because after a while, even the closest of friends and the nicest of people, unless they are in that situation,
they really don't get it.
they,
No, you're
they don't get it,
absolutely
and they really don't care.
Right.
And my
They
own
don't.
family, they don't really get it.
Oh well, my boys don't either.
They just don't get how sick you are.
Right.
And one of my doctors said, don't wear any makeup next time you go
Right.
out. Then they'll know.
Right. It's
You
because
know,
you
you
know why?
really
It's
look.
because you look okay.
Yeah.
And like my son in Pittsburgh, I didn't go last year up there. I went the year before for the. I went in the summer to have a birthday party for my
Okay.
little granddaughter. It was her birthday was in January, and I didn't want to go in the cold. I was, so I went up then and we got her a cake. Well, of course, I fell down the steps there, got sick, had to
Oh.
go to bed for a day. And they still, when they talk to me, they never say, "Oh, well, how are you doing?" or "How's this?" It's like
It doesn't exist.
I'm just mom, and I'm.
I think
I'm fine.
it's too foreign to them
And
also.
they can't
It's also
believe.
overwhelming.
Right,
you know.
they don't know what to say.
Exactly. And Paul, when you asked the question, I'm sorry, Debbie, I didn't
No,
mean to
that's
cut you
okay.
off, but when you asked the question, and people ask, I say, same. That's my one word answer.
Yeah.
Because with the complications that she goes through, I can't make an explanation. And to try and do so would not be, fair to them or fair to her or fair to me.
Well, we've spoken many times on air that we are each other's support group.
Right.
Because if it wasn't for someone like yourself who really cares, really understands, there is no one that I can speak to who can appreciate it, because it's really a detriment for them
Yes, it is.
to know
Yes.
that much.
It's not a pleasant.
No.
Well, but also, you don't need your business associates
Right.
knowing all of the close personal stuff that's going on. Now, contradistinctive of that, which is my $10 word for the evening.
Wow, I like that.
All right?
That's interesting. Is it real?
Because I run support groups, I'm around caregivers, and they know that my wife is sick, and I've explained a little bit so that they understand that I'm no different than they are, even though I may be experienced in the discipline of running support groups and speaking on the matter. But I'm having a tough day, and a week ago, they all ganged up because they heard the radio show when we were talking about what do you do for yourself? And they all said, now what are you going to do for yourself? And so sometimes you have to be careful what you say on the air, because it'll come back to haunt you. By the way, we're at 888-565-1470. I hope you folks are it's hard to say whether you're enjoying this or whether you're really getting an earful of what it is like for two active businessmen to also have a wife that was a very active person, and all of a sudden a disease that we really can't put our fingers on. We can give them names, but we never know what's going to be the effects of it, and we go through our day with one thing in mind: A, whatever we have to get done, but B, what's going on at home. And you really have to keep yourself very much aware of what's happening at home. And I found that to be the case. And invariably, whenever you think it's running smoothly, as I said before, there's a hiccup.
Well, there's no such thing as being grounded.
No.
Because the ground is jello.
Yes.
And you don't know what is coming around the corner next or what tomorrow is going to bring. And Debbie and I have spoken so many times is that you just have to really enjoy that moment that you have, because that's all you know you have.
I think David gets tired of hearing me say, tomorrow there'll be blue skies and butterflies. So we just have to remember that it'll be a good day. And I have to try to.
You have to believe.
Yeah.
Try to make yourself.
I really
believe
do.
that.
Well, if you don't get
You
up
have
with
to
that
think
attitude,
positive.
you're doomed.
And I mean, one thing I think for, I guess, I don't know if a lot of men take care of their spouses or what, but I know Paul just went right into the role. There was no like saying, oh, I need this, I need that. I mean, everything was always on my bedside that I needed. I never had
Yes.
to ask for anything. And I mean, he was constantly...
The attentive, dutiful
He
wife.
used to bug me more. He used to say, get me a bell when I need you, I'll ring it. He would come in more than I would have went in for him. And but he was just so concerned, and he always does an excellent job of doing everything for me. And he says, when we made that promise, that's the way it is. He says, maybe I'll get sick. And I says, you better not.
Well,
I'm sorry.
no. You go
I'm
ahead.
curious. I don't know if this is a good thing to ask or not, but I'm curious. There certainly has to be a lot of caregivers who just can't do it. So there's got to be a lot of couples that aren't couples anymore. I don't know if you know. If you
I know
come
exactly what you're saying.
Right.
do you come across that
Oh.
often in your work?
Yes, there are people that deeply resent the fact that their spouse got sick.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say resent, I've got a number of them in two support groups
Yes.
that are really angry at what their spouse
Well,
did to them.
What
Right.
life handed
As though
They
the
planned
spouse
it.
that got sick wanted to have that happen to
Right.
them, but they feel very put upon. They feel trapped. They feel that
How do you help them?
How do I help them? We help them by making them recognize, to the extent that they can, that you can't get angry at a disease, that you can't have resentment
Yeah.
for a person getting sick. I mean, possibly if you were an individual who abused certain things and you brought it on yourself, then possibly you could see being angry at that. But
Okay.
in the case of both you and Debbie, you didn't ask for what's coming. You didn't expect anything like this. And
But I think you two are very special.
They are.
Well, wait a minute. We do get angry.
yeah.
Well,
I mean,
we get angry at the system.
we get angry at the system.
yes.
I mean, a couple of times, I've said to Debbie, don't try to reach for things over your head. Don't get up on a ladder. Don't stand on a chair. Invariably, somewhere along the way, she's going to try to get something off the top shelf, and it'll fall. She'll fall. There'll be an injury. I get angry about that.
Well, that I can understand. Yeah,
Oh,
that I can
mean, I
understand.
think both of us do that. When I yell at you, don't do that, or
Right.
because
And I'm
there are-
doing it
And
already.
and we should know better.
Right, because there are days her balance is bad, and with her awful knees, it looks like the rambling wreck from Georgia Tech. And
I kind of bounce off the walls sometimes.
yeah, and
Sometimes I do too.
and all of a sudden I say stop, because if she goes one step further, she and the floor are going to collide with one another.
Well, I know with Debbie, how about you, Suzette? When Debbie's having bad days, they're really bad, and she's in a lot of pain, and she doesn't want to do anything. The problem is that when she's having a better day, she has to make up for the time that she lost, and
Yes.
she puts herself right back to where she was before. So we go from bad to good to bad again, and simply because there's no moderation in between. Do you find yourself doing that?
Absolutely. Because if I have a day with energy,
Right, you're going to use it.
oh boy, I'm going to clean
Yep.
that house, and I'm going to clean those cupboards, and I'm going to scrub the floor, and I'm going to get all these things done, and I do them. And then the next
The
day,
next day you pay for it.
I pay for it maybe for 3 days by laying on the sofa a lot. I'm not too thrilled about it, but I'm still so happy I have a day I can really do things.
Right, that's how I feel.
He has a
too.
very hard time making me not. Right?
Well, yeah, because it's kind of like the person that's got a bad virus, or a bad cold rather, and the doctor gives him some medicine, and he says take this for the full 7
Right.
days, and on day 2 you feel better, so you stop taking it, and then
Right.
bam, it comes back and it's worse than it was.
Exactly.
She forgets, and so the moment that she feels good is the moment that she will try and make up for,
Right.
just as you said, Paul.
Well, we're going out to eat for Thanksgiving because we don't have any family down here, right near us. And I said to him last night, in fact, I says, oh, I can't wait for Thursday, so we can eat, I mean, they have all good treats and everything. And he says, well, that all depends on you, how you feel and what you do. He says, so if you want to go, you better make sure that you follow all the rules. And he's talking to me like I'm a little kid.
But you know
And I
he's
mean-
That's
right.
the teacher in him.
And yeah, well, and I mean, I says to him, don't talk like that to me. I know I shouldn't be. I mean, I can't tell you how many thousands of patients I've said the same thing to, and here I am.
And they didn't listen either.
They didn't know.
Well, to our audience out there, you're hearing it like it really is. And, we may laugh about a few things, but both our wives have serious conditions. Paul and I have learned, he over a shorter period of time, I've been at this for a good decade and a few years, that it's not easy, but it's something that you do out of love. And instinctively, if you're that kind of a person, and I'm not being self-serving about that, then you just do what you have to do. You don't look for anybody to go, oh my gosh, how do you do that? You're just so wonderful. And no, we're not. We're doing what we have to do. And as I said earlier, I always put it in the same perspective. If the situation were reversed, I know that Suzette would do for me what I do for her, and I know that would be the case with you and Paul.
Yeah.
And I know you'd prefer to be better and let Paul be sick.
Oh, yes. Let him get a little experience, because every time I was telling you when I have to get injections in my neck and my back, he's like always, oh, it's going to be okay. And I would say, yeah, because you're in that chair and I'm over here.
Right.
I'm sitting there stamping my feet and probably got kicked out of every church in the world, but
Well,
Tell you.
a few weeks back, and I told the audience, I had a tremendous fall that I took,
Oh, yes.
and that really laid me up and laid me down. And I'm still recovering from it. I'm still in PT. I've got a lot of dental work. It caused a great deal of havoc. Fortunately, it didn't break any bones, but there were a few days I couldn't move. I was in ice packs and painkillers.
I did pretty good as a caregiver.
And she would hobble out,
Right.
And, she couldn't pick me up and move me around,
Right.
but she did the best she could. And that's all you can really
That's
ask
all-
for.
right. That's what
But it
counts.
would have been nice if there was a full-time added caregiver. And,
Yes, wouldn't it?
so just so you can feel sorry for yourself and get better chicken soup.
Well, I think I need a wife. I need a wife to do all those things. That's what I really need.
Yeah, you know what? Me too.
We both need a wife.
Right. Well, and Paul?
I have one, and that's enough.
Oh.
I don't think I need a second one.
All right.
But Debbie is very. There's not a selfish bone in her body, and she is always telling me to stop. It's enough. It's okay. You got to get out. Do something for yourself, and
Yes.
doesn't understand that this is something that I choose to do. I would rather be home with her, just sitting watching television, than going out and doing something else by myself. And it's not because of her illness or because she's unable to do things herself. It's that I still want to be with her,
Yes.
and I still want to spend time with her. And it's a choice, and sometimes she has a really hard time accepting that.
Yes. I do. I want him to go to things.
Quick story. When Debbie was maybe about a year and a half ago, and she was really in the throes of a lot of unwellness, there was a formal affair that was important that I go to that night. And Debbie, we got into an argument over it. She was insistent that I get a date for the night.
And I couldn't be available.
So why didn't you ask David?
Yeah, I wasn't available.
And I just
My
simply
card was
said, no,
full.
that's something that I'm just not going to do. I mean, it was really that she felt that she was letting me down. And it's an illness. She's not letting anyone down. It's the illness taking over control.
Right.
How did you feel that night?
When you stayed home?
Yeah.
Well, I felt guilty because it was very important for you to go because of your job, your work. And you just said, it's not the most important thing in my life. You are. And you stayed home. And I did feel bad. And I kept saying, well, get a date. And I had gained all this weight from my medicine. And I says, I can't go anyhow because they don't make gowns for fat people. So I says, go go just for an hour. He says, you know what? I want to just sit here and watch TV with you. I just want to rest. And you're feeling good. Let's just sit here and rest.
And that's very similar to us. I mean, there was a while back when business-wise, etc., you'd get invited to things or people would ask you to do things, etc. And I got to be the man that could never say yes. All right, because I felt the same way that Paul did. I had a responsibility. And after a while, I think you just get used to doing what you got to do and doing it at home.
Yes.
And I've been at it for a long time, and I can't think of the last time I took time off. And I finally said to Paul, the last 2 weeks of December, I am going to do very, very little except the radio show, and I'm going to try and figure out something. I have some books I haven't even had a chance to read. I've got some things that I want to write and do, but I can do them from home. Maybe I'll go take a nice long walk or go fish in my lake or something like that, but I won't be far from home.
Right.
And that makes me comfortable. And so, we all have to live with the things that happen to us, and we have to accept it. And I think that you ladies have you've accepted your disease. That's not to say that you don't fight it every day.
Right.
All right, but I think it was harder to accept your perception of the imposition
Right.
Yes.
of what you imposed
I
on
think
us
we
by
were
your illness.
both very independent.
Very.
And
Oh,
we were
yes.
so used to doing everything at work, making sure everybody had everything right.
Oh, yes.
And this was something we couldn't control.
No. And you know what I miss
and I'm a
too?
control freak.
Your salary.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, truth be known, it would have
Truth
been
be
nice to have
known.
been a two-wage earner family for a longer period of time.
Right, that's how I felt. I kept saying I'm not contributing anymore.
Right.
I tricked him. He married me, and then I got sick.
Well, you know, you win some, you lose some. Maybe wife number 3, what can I tell you?
That's right. Maybe the next one will be better.
Or the cat.
Or the cat, right. Well, anyway, we're starting to round down to the end of the hour. And next week, Paul and I will be back here doing We Are Spousal Caregivers. I want to thank Debbie. I want to thank my wife. I think both of you were very candid and very honest, and you spoke the truth about what the situation is like, and I thank you for that, and I believe so does the audience. Next week, we'll be back. I'm not sure whether on next Monday the 2nd or the following week we'll have Dr. David Hilfiker back on,
Oh, great.
who's more than confused about why he has cognitive impairment and no signs of dementia. And so that will put us back on our normal role, and I have some things that I want to bring up, and some other people and incidences that I think you will find interesting. And by the way, Debbie, just by way of closing, when you said you don't know how many men are doing caregiving, the latest studies say about 45% of caregivers are men. And so it used to be women, but it has certainly balanced itself out. So I just want to say to Boca Raton, America, and the world, this is David Levy with my co-host Paul Vattiato and our wives, and we hope that we have brought you some education and a little insight into what it's like to be a spousal caregiver in 2013. Thank you.
Thank you,
you.
ladies.
Hello, are you a family caregiver? Are you taking care of a spouse, parent, or loved one who can no longer care for themselves? You have been listening and watching David Levy, gerontologist and non-clinical family caregiving expert. Visit our website at caregiverreality.com and hear and see unscripted family caregiver support groups discussing all of the questions that you have wanted to ask but didn't know where to turn. Tune in again next time for more updates and special guests who bring their caregiving experience to you so that you can deal with your problems and hear how family caregiving is affecting fellow Americans just like you. The opinions expressed on the preceding sponsored program were strictly those of its hosts, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors.